What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, the franchise player, Double B Bad Blood, joined by this gentleman right here, one of the co-founders and owners of the hottest Pacific Northwest professional wrestling promotion around, Defy Wrestling. This is Mr. Matt Farmer. Matt, welcome to the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bad Blood. Appreciate it. Man, it's excited to be here.
Man, it's been a while, man. Shit, like I tell people, I've seen it all pretty much in this business. I've know a whole gaggle of people, and I remember the very first time I met you. It was down in the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo in Los Angeles.
That's right.
Suicide Kings versus a tag team from Hawaii.
Yeah,
man. Look at you, man. You shit. You skyrocketed, made the best of the life here in the Northwest.
Yeah, it's really weird how progression of your career goes. It's very strange. Like when I was getting into wrestling, I never really thought about it it was never like an intention of like getting into promoting or even booking. Like I always had some interest in booking and things like that, but it was never like a goal. My goal was originally just to have some matches and have some fun and do some wrestling stuff. But as it progressed, I started seeing things that I wanted to change in the industry, and a type of events I wanted to see in the business. And so, with my partner and I, we decided to like present something a little different, change things up, change the norm up and how things are presented, and really deliver a different product that had been delivered previously.
I sit back and I look at all the things that you've done over the course of years and the people that have come through the doors of Defy. I mean, the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the Bucks were going to start for AEW, the first place they hit was Seattle. They hit you. They surprised everybody by showing up there. You've had a gaggle of people from New Japan Pro Wrestling. You had a working agreement with Progress Wrestling, which is in my opinion, the Defy of the UK. You got a working agreement with AEW. You got guys like Darby Allin who came and literally offered a contract to Nick Wayne at a Defy show. Swerve Strickland comes from there. You've got like so much amazing talent that flows in and out of there. We were talking off the air about a match that me personally, I think was probably one of the best Defy matches I've ever seen. Leo Rush and Davey Richards. What, in your opinion, when you decided to come and you decided to put this promotion together, what were the three top things that you wanted to change about the wrestling industry?
Our goal necessarily wasn't to change professional wrestling as a whole. Mm-hmm. Our goal was more to present a different style of event that fans in the Pacific Northwest were used to seeing. From the production, from the quality of matches to the aesthetics, everything. That was our goal. As like promoters of the past, usually they would just book a random building somewhere and just throw some matches together. They may promote it, they may not. It was always really touch and go on how they presented things. And then if you were lucky, you'd have some ring music and you see the participants would just come out a door or something,
Yeah.
and make their way to the ring, and there wasn't a lot of thought put into those kind of things. There wasn't a lot of thought put into marketing and branding and things like that. And so that was one of the things we really wanted to change about how things were presented in the Northwest. There were a lot of challenges, of course, because of the licensing and things like that at the time that were going on, but um, those were our goals. Our goals were also to elevate um, the entire region because as you know, the Pacific Northwest for a long time was kind of, it was never mentioned when they talked about national promotions.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that was one of the things that was our goal too, is to really elevate some of the guys that were in the region, and also just the presence of wrestling in the area. So that was our goal on the onset.
Well, I mean, you fucking knocked that out the park. Let's just call it what it is. Uh, um, when did you decide to step away from in-ring competition to running the backstage, so to speak?
It was something that it was never something where I said, "Oh, geez, I'm done wrestling. I'm retired." Blah blah blah. It was just one of those things where I had injured myself. I had received a couple pretty bad injuries that were just kind of like fluke injuries.
Yeah.
I remember one of them was just I took a bump on a bad ring, which had a board like elevated on top of another board, and it was just one of those situations that could happen to anybody. Where I think the bump was like a simple body slam or something, and the bump just the ring, because um it wasn't placed, it wasn't set up properly. It just jacked up my back, and that was like a lingering problem. It was becoming a problem where and then like I tore my pec at the same time,
Mm.
you know so it was just one of those weird issues where
Wait, I remember
there.
this.
Yeah, it was just a weird thing where like I never like really publicized it or anything, but I was having trouble like getting out of bed, just stupid bumps. And so I just stopped wrestling for a little while. No intentions of like necessarily retiring. Um, and to be honest with you, and this is completely frank, I didn't care for most of the promotions that were going on in the Northwest at the time. I thought they were poorly ran, poorly handled. I didn't think that they were presenting the product like it should be presented. A lot of the promoters really didn't have like a wrestling background, so they didn't really understand what to do in terms of presenting the product. And it was just, it was kind of being ran. They were shit. A lot of the promoters were renting out of garages or something. So I lost a lot of interest in what was going on locally. Um, and that was pretty much just it. Like it was kind of hard seeing how things were running in different areas of the country and how popular indie wrestling was in certain markets and pockets of the area in the nation or in the world, and seeing how they were doing it right, and then going to a local indie show where there was maybe 50 people or something like that of fans that you know weren't really interested. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, and comparing that to what was going on elsewhere and being like, wait, it could actually be good, you know? And that was frustrating. So it was just one of those things where I lost interest in the local scene, and that kind of led to my decision to kind of like pull away from it. There was a lot to be honest, there was like a lot of promoters and stuff that were just not, and you've come across them too, where you just saw
Oh yeah.
guys that they weren't able to get booked themselves. So they'd like start a promotion, they would run shows and they didn't know, they couldn't even lock up properly,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's super common, and it's still common today. But that was one of the things that just lost my interest in wrestling.
I'm kind of going through the same thing right now. When you run a successful company, you're drawing 400 people a week, it kind of feels you like, fuck, I can do this, right?
Yeah.
Then politics and drama and bullshit get brought into it, and you watch something that you brought from infancy to adulthood, and you watch it just completely slide off the scale from drawing 300 to 400 people a week every week
Hmm.
to drawing 25 people when 15 of them are family.
Yeah.
And you lose though that to coin a phrase of Shawn Michaels, I lost my smile.
Yeah.
And I kind of I see that now. Like now that you brought this about, it's like, damn, you're right. When you go other places, like when I go wrestle in Texas or Indiana or Utah or Tennessee, and there's like 300, 400, 500 people, and they're crazy, and they're like rabid wrestling fans. I remember once I went to go wrestle for House of Glory in New York,
Great
and
promotion.
I was in the car with Black G's, and we were wrestling against Brian Excel and Amazing Red.
Yeah.
And Brian says, "Yo, y'all gotta get out of the car," and I'm like, we're like 4 blocks from the venue. And he's like, yeah, these fans here, they'll fuck you up. They did crazy about it. And just to see like the change from the way fans are on the East Coast, and then you come back to the West Coast, and it's just like, oh fuck, man, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Defy fans are rabid. Like you guys have the streamer club. You guys, it's probably, in my opinion, the PWG of the Northwest.
Yeah, we're very, very thankful for our fans, and we're very happy. We take a lot of pride in our fans, and there's some great people, and it's one of the things that drives us and motivates us so much is to present good cards for those guys because we don't want to let them down. When we do go to other areas or when we do work with other promotions in other parts of the country or the world or whatever, or we see, or like if we're visiting a certain part of the country and we go to another card and we see the fans just sitting there, we're just like, ooh, that's weird. That's weird to us to go to like say like a different city or something, go down to LA or whatever, or down to like in Chicago or something, and you see fans that are at an indie show and they're just kind of like, just kind of just lackadaisical, and it's like eye opening to us about how great we have it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been on shows where it was like the fans were crazy, standing room only, just everything was getting them excited. And then I've been to shows where fans were sitting there texting each other while they're,
Yeah.
And Defy, I've never seen a Defy show that way.
No, and we're very thankful for that. But some of that has to do with the product that you present, the atmosphere that you provide. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and some of them are factors that you kind of have some control over. Others, of course, you don't. It's just the fans in that situation, But yeah, man, we're very thankful for that. We just came back from London last weekend and had a great show over there, and that was good, man. It was nearly sold out Electric Ballroom, which is a very legendary venue over there, and show was awesome. And
I think the
fans
main
were
event
great.
was Kenta and Mark Haskins, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Fuck, you can't have a bad show with Kenta on it.
No, and Kenta's our current Defy World Champion, and he's doing a lot of good for the promotion right now. He's really presenting our championship in a good light, so that's great.
I mean, you've had some great champions, Alex Shelley. I mean, you guys have had like just a gaggle of greatness come out of there, man.
Alex Shelley's never been our champion, but Alex has been with our worked with our promotion quite a few times, and he's always great to have in. Our last world champion, of course, was Nick Wayne, and before that was Swerve Strickland. So there's good company there.
I remember you said something one time in an interview somewhere about Cody Rhodes and a 10-year-old Nick Wayne.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, Nick was a kid that like I've known since he was a baby, and I always wanted, I knew he had that interest in wrestling.
I mean, look who his dad was. Come on.
Yeah, and I knew he wanted to be a pro wrestler, and he was very respectful in how he handled things, and I, of course, knowing his family as well as I do from his grandfather all the way down. We, a lot of our venues that we would run would be 21 and over, but I would always come up with tasks for him. I would have him work for me in some kind of a capacity where it could be as simple as grabbing jackets from the ring or running errands for me in the back, which would allow me to have him backstage during these shows as a minor. And of course, his mom would be there too, which, so I don't just have some minor running around with a bunch of adults. She
Mhm.
was there to kind of watch him and keep an eye on him, and because I kept an eye on him too. I'd always invite him to the shows and have him do these little menial tasks for me, so he could be around those guys, so he could witness what was going on with those upper echelon wrestlers. And it was just a time where we had Cody Rhodes in, and Cody Rhodes was great to work with. He was a great brand ambassador. Um, he always took time with everybody on the roster if somebody had a question or something. And it was just one of those situations where Nick, as a young fan, wanted to get a picture with this guy who was, at the time just, you know, on a huge run at the time. And yeah, it was just a really interesting photo. So to see where they're at now, I could see that
Exactly.
match. I could see that match between those guys maybe being like a main event of, say, a WrestleMania or something in 5 years. So
Yeah. Um, there's a question. How would you compare 2023 wrestling to 2010? It's like a 13-year
hmm.
gap.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences. I think across the board, for the most part, every promotion has done a better job of branding themselves and presenting the product better. Just the production, not necessarily in the ring, but production as a whole, from how they videotape it to their lighting, etc. I think is way better today than it was 10 years ago,
Oh yeah.
um, or in 2010. Also, the in-ring product has evolved. And I think a lot of that has to do with just global awareness of the product. Um, I think the training of wrestlers, for the most part, has gotten better.
Thank God.
You still have pockets where wrestling schools exist that half-heartedly train people, or don't really understand how to train properly, or that's still happening. But I think the number of schools that are putting out high quality talent is still there. Um, so I think the basic fundamentals, for the most part, is stronger than it was 10 years ago. I know people might disagree with that, but it's how I
Mhm.
feel and what I see every day. There was, geez, you know this, 10, 15 years ago, there was so many promoters out there where you would see 90% of the card were guys who were half trained or untrained or improperly trained. Now I would say that percentage is lower, probably at 30%. But it was a big problem back then.
Yeah.
Stepping into rings, you never knew who you were stepping in with. You'd have to wait for that first lockup to tell if the guy was competent.
It's really strange that like we're talking about this because I remember when I first started the dojo, like I was trained by Mondo and Rey Mysterio Senior and all those guys, and I knew the lucha style of it. But when I went to the dojo, it was like learning all over again.
Yeah,
And you never stop learning. You know what I mean? I worked a guy 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Shit, I didn't know how to do this." And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, this blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Well, shit, show me." Like,
yeah,
hey, you learn something every time you get in the ring with someone. That's the positive, but the negative, you always get in the ring. You learn something when you get in the ring with someone, but you also learn how to defend yourself a lot better when you get in the ring with someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
yeah.
A
That's
lot of
very
guys are
true.
like that. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of
and
guys
you
are like
also have to develop your own skills to put on performance
that. Mhm.
when you're working with somebody that is untrained. You have to learn ways to do things to entertain the crowd. That's more self-controlled than relying on your opponent.
Yeah.
I still think, to this, one of the negatives about today is that so much of the talent has trouble maybe calling it on the fly if something were to break down. But I think as people experience grows, that will change, because today we have more and more wrestlers that are getting to that next level 2, 3 years in than at any time ever.
Oh, yeah. The
So
progression of wrestlers
you,
nowadays is so vastly different from when we started.
yeah, yeah, you have guys getting contracts now who, and it's not just one or two, but you have a lot of guys getting contracts now that have less than 5 years in the business, which is phenomenal. But
Completely
it's more
unheard of in our
athletic than it
time.
ever was too.
So unheard of in our time, I tell you.
Yeah.
I hate saying our time because I feel old as shit when I say that.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, you're completely right, 100%. Um, there's another question here. Let's see. How important is it for you to blend young guys with vets?
Oh, geez, it's 1000% important. I mean, you can't as a young vet, as a young talent, no matter how many times you work with a wrestler at your skill level, you're only going to reach a certain level.
Oh yeah,
Um, no matter how great you are at doing spots or whatever, you'll stay at that level. You'll stay at the level of the people you're working. The only way you're going to get better is by wrestling those vets, and it's extremely important. I don't think you could ever reach your peak as a performer without getting in the ring with guys who have been there for 15, 20 years. They just know things that you wouldn't even think about.
yeah. There's certain ways that like when you work with a young guy, it's spot, 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 and we've been in the business long enough to kind of understand now that those old guys that used to tell us things when we were young, like they were telling us the shit for a reason. Like
Yeah,
less is more, man. You can do 5 spots and have a great match as opposed to 30 spots and have a great match because if you do 5 spots, what are people going to remember? They're going to remember the lockup. They're going to remember the pin. They're not going to
yep,
remember everything else.
yeah, yeah. There's so many little intricate things too that you really need to learn, and it's hard to learn without having that experience be in the ring with you. So
Yeah, trust me, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from a lot of older guys that I sit back
yeah,
and think to myself like, damn, I'm really glad I listened.
yeah.
One more question he has here. What are some of your best book Defy matches?
Ooh,
That's a tough one.
hmm. Um, I one of my favorite booked matches would have been and this is going to be weird because a lot of people don't think battle royal style matches are booked. I don't think a lot of people take those matches and think there's something special. But last year we did a match with Shaft where he did like an open challenge type battle royal, and we had 8 guys. It was kind of like a Royal Rumble style match where they'd come in at separate times. I really enjoyed that just because I think it came together really well. Yeah, because we had the all the entrants, then at the very end we had a surprise return. That whole segment I thought was really well done, and I put a lot of time. We put a lot of time and thought and energy into that, and I think it turned out really great. Um, that was one of my favorites. The whole the whole Nick Wayne and Swerve um, matches storylines, and this would even start with Nick Wayne and Christopher Daniels, and how it progressed into Nick Wayne versus Swerve, and then farther. I thought that was really well done. That was something I really enjoyed. Um, yeah, those are some of my favorites just off the top of my head.
Um, John Moxley.
Yeah,
I think it was Artemis Spencer.
yeah,
That was good too. Burt Vixen, Billy Starks, who's fucking killing the game right now in the industry.
yeah,
All these people have come through Defy, like shit, you know.
yeah. In the last few months,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
I'm trying to think of the one that
yeah. John Moxley and Artemis Spencer was something special because Artemis has been considered one of the better local Northwest guys for years, and he's very underrated. For Defy fans, he's not underrated because he was one of our longer reigning champions,
mhm.
and he was a guy who we continually put in the ring with top talent and always impressed the fans. And it was somebody that Moxley had seen, and Moxley was interested in wrestling him because he knew that Artemis was also into jujitsu and things like that. So that always interests Moxley, and Moxley wanted to wrestle a guy like that. And they had a tremendous match. I really enjoyed it a lot. And so it's one of those things where that's a match that you never thought of. Oh boy, I'd like to see that match. But when we presented it, I think a lot of fans were like, "Oh my gosh, that's a match I never really thought about." But boy, I'd love to see it.
One
And
of my
that's always fun to do.
one of my favorite matches was like really hard hitting when fucking Pete Dunne was the WWE UK champion and he
Hmm.
fucking worked Brody King.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
matches
yeah,
like that. Matches
that
like
yeah,
that.
and that was a match that we weren't actually able to even. Well, we weren't. That's a match that wasn't really supposed to happen. It wasn't. Let's see, we weren't really supposed to necessarily have a WWE champion on our show. Let's just put it that way. But we were able to make it work, and yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And that was one. I know for the longest time that was one of Brody's favorite matches.
Mhm.
I don't know if it still is, but it probably is because we chatted about it not too long ago, and it was still one of his tops. So
What about having Walter, currently the WWE, the longest reigning
yeah,
WWE Intercontinental Champion in history right now? I think he's already surpassed Honky Tonk Man. Um, Dude, what about having Walter at Defy chopping the
yeah,
shit out of people, man?
yeah, that was awesome too. And it, Walter's always a little bit of a sore subject because right before he signed and right after that match, we were talking and we were planning out some details on making for Walter to make regular appearances with Defy. We actually had numerous dates booked for the future, and fortunately for him, he was signed and he's went on to great things, which is awesome. But it's always one of those things. Selfishly, I'm like, well, shit, man, we could have had you know 4 or 5 more awesome matches with Walter. When he was so great.
Mhm.
But that's how things turn out sometimes.
So what I'm getting out of this whole interview right here, I'm just gonna lay it out for you. Matt Farmer is the booker of stars because
Oh shit.
it seems like everyone that has come to Defy has either signed with WWE, they signed with Impact Wrestling, or they've signed with fucking AEW.
Yeah, I mean that's thankfully we've also built up relationships with a lot of promotions. So we have like New Japan Pro Wrestling that we work with often. Um, and guys like AEW, which is, we have like an unofficial official partnership with them where, you know, we have access to their talent. Um, and a lot of that stems from the fact that we have worked with a lot of the talent previous to those promotions and we've built up good relationships with those promotions.
Treat
We've
people
treated
right.
them well.
Treat
So
people right.
that way, they go, and they enjoy themselves. So that when time comes to ask them to come in and work with us again, they're more than happy to.
Last question.
Yes.
Brian Danielson. Now, we all knew Brian Danielson before he became WWE Daniel Bryan. He's a Washington guy. We've all been
Yeah.
around him before all this stuff. He was American Dragon. I was down the dojo in LA with him for a while, so yeah, I know the whole his Washingtonian life.
Hmm.
He's mentioned that he wants to come and do some Defy stuff. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Oh man, shit. No way. I wouldn't allow it. I'm just joking. Yeah, man. It's something that we've had a lot of conversations about, and if he wasn't injured this year, it probably would have happened already. Knock on wood. Who said
Yeah.
things could happen, but it's something that I'm pretty confident will happen. There's always you never know though with injuries and things like that, or what happens in people's personal lives, or what happens in people's business lives could affect those things. It's something we would like to happen, and something that he would like to do. So I do hope before all is said and done that we do get an opportunity to have him come in and do something. And um, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great. There's a lot of wrestlers out there, a lot of big name wrestlers that have shown interest in coming in, and yeah. So we'll just see what the future holds. Hopefully it will happen.
That's gotta make you feel real good knowing that,
Yeah.
all these all these major international stars are like, dude, I want to get booked at Defy.
Yeah, yeah, very much. And there's some weird things. It's interesting when you hear or when you run into wrestlers and they say, "Oh yeah, I watch your show," and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, you know, a couple names I'll throw out, and it's just weird. But like, Shawn Michaels, for instance, he is a big fan of Defy, and he watches a lot of our stuff. Edge is a big fan as well, and as a matter of fact, Edge even like, I'm not going to tell anybody what match it was, but Edge even booked one of our matches,
Oh shit!
and at least he booked the finish for the match, I'll say. And it was just one of those things that he wanted to see how that finish would work, and it was kind of cool to see, right? And he had been watching, and he knew some of the wrestlers that were in it. He was friends with a couple of the wrestlers that were in it, so it was just something that he wanted to do, and was like, try this out. And so, of course, we tried it out. So that's always cool to do.
Man, that's pretty fucking cool right there, dude.
Yeah.
That is cool. So before I go, let's go ahead and shout out all your socials and any upcoming dates and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. My personal social media is usually at MattFarmer93. But check out Defy Defy NW on all social media platforms, DefyWrestling.com. Also, if you want to check out some free wrestling, go to Remix TV, which is where all of our Defy events are debut at, and our show that we just presented from London will debut later this week. I believe this coming Thursday. Also, September 23rd, we're back at Washington Hall, which is our home. We've got Eddie Kingston versus Rocky Romero for the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Openweight Championship.
I love Eddie Kingston. Yeah.
October 13th, we've got a huge show at the Sun Dome in Yakima. We got Vikingo. We've got Ultimo Dragon. We have Juventud Guerrera, Masato Tanaka from ECW fame. And
I have missing tooth because of him.
Yeah. We'll be dropping a lot more names for that event here in the next couple days. So keep following.
Sweet. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, keep following.
Yeah.
Man. Matt, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
You too, brother. Appreciate it.
We got to chop it up some other time, man. You're always welcome. There's always a seat at the table for you, man. If you ever want to come on, promote any of your events, you know me, man. We go back like Similac.
For sure. All right, man. Take it easy.
Right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast. For this man right here, Matt Farmer, I am the franchise. We'll see you guys when we see you.